Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Fix Truce. I rode these bindings at Copper Mountain on a day that was mostly bluebird, warmer temps, you had slush, chop, chunder, ice, kind of just a good mix of everything at the start of the season, and I rode it on my Ride Shadow Band board with my K2 Thraxis boots. When it comes to adjustability on this binding, it's pretty straightforward. You have a flip tab on the toe and the heel so you can lengthen or shorten it. You got the flip tab on the Highback as well for your forward lean. The toe straps are on a push pin system, so push down, pull up, lock that in, and then you have this little pop tab on the side that if you pop it down, you can adjust the rotation of your Highback if that's your thing. It's a little trickier than you think to adjust, but once you figure it out, it's pretty straightforward. So when it comes to the straps, you have a molded toe strap. It's very reminiscent of the Union TS 4.0 toe strap in my opinion. It does a good job of just locking down and just feeling secure on your foot. There's a little bit of stretch to it, but not a lot. With the heel strap, it's a stitch strap. That means it's gonna break in over time. That padding's gonna just stretch, the stitching's gonna stretch. Be aware of that. Now with that said, it has a really good ample cutout to fit over the instep, but providing support on the outside of the boot. So if you want something with a little bit of padding, a little more girth to it, something that isn't just gonna cradle right around your instep, this isn't a bad option. These aren't the stiffest straps out there, so you really can push through them, but they do a good job of holding you down. So it's been a few years since I rode the Truce, and the ratchets actually feel like they're even more dialed in. You got that one finger quick release, it works well, they climb well, you don't have to worry about them. There's not a lot of play to it. They just feel secure. They do their job and they do their job well. With the Highback, there is no padding. That means direct contact. It is molded fairly deep, so it should just butt right up against the back spine of your boot. Now with that Highback rotation, there is a little bit of play in the Highback. That's one thing you gotta notice. They just don't feel as locked in as others out there. So you do get that little bit of give side to side. Overall, as this is the Truce, this is not really a super stiff binding, but there is some rigidity to that Highback. The overall flex of this binding comes in just a hair below middle of the road. There is some serious give to this binding through the straps. You notice that, and even in the Highback, even with it being slightly more rigid. The one other thing to note is that it does have a bigger disc, meaning that there is also a bigger dead spot underfoot. But with that said, you can still feel that you get binding roll side to side with it. Like I said, just below a middle of the road, but it's just like a meat and potatoes binding that you can trust. So the overall ride of this binding isn't the most damp. It's fairly lively. The foot pad does a good job with some of that kinetic energy, but you don't have like a urethane bushing or anything underneath to dissipate any of that vibration. So you're gonna feel it. With that said, with the bigger disc, it still does derive a lot more power than other bindings in the same price point. Who's this binding for? Someone that wants a meat and potatoes do-it-all binding. And that's what this is, and that's what's great about it. Riding this binding reminded me of the old K2 Indy, a binding that I rode for years. It feels like this has trickle-down tech from other bindings in the Fix line, which is good. That's not a bad thing. But for the price, it's just meat and potatoes, and it performs. It performs well. I actually really like this. My only gripe would be that wiggle in the Highback, which you don't notice when you're riding, but it's there, and psychologically it gets in your head. And well, we don't want that. No one wants to be in my head. But overall, it's a good binding. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It did its job well. There's things that I think could be tweaked on it, but for the price, you know what you're gonna get and you know you're gonna be able to ride with it. Comparable bindings, the Union STR, the K2 Indy, the Nitro Rambler. All right, this has been my review of the Fix Truce. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you own one? Are you gonna buy some? Leave me a comment down below. Let's have a conversation about this binding. If you're new here, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing here and you wanna support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avran LeFeber, and I'll see you in another video.